Hey guys, thank you for joining today's podcast episode. Today we're joined with Ollie Carson. Ollie, could you give us a quick introduction? Who are you? What do you do?
Yeah, for sure, man. Thank you very much for having me, dude. So I guess the short answer to that is I started in the fitness industry about 10 or 11 years ago. Actually started in the military. I was a physical training instructor, which is where I found my passion for coaching and helping people to improve their physical performance and their well-being. And then I left the military and became a personal trainer. I worked for a massive brand called Grenade, as many of your listeners will probably have heard of. Filled my personal training books fairly quickly, left that brand, opened my own facility, and then became an online coach, a full online coach a couple of years prior to the pandemic. Filled my books there, was doing multiple six figures online. And then amidst the pandemic, started to get lots of messages from other coaches who were kind of following my stuff on social media, wanting help with systems and process and how to build their own coaching businesses. And I thought, there's something here. I've got to do something with this. I'm getting lots of inquiries from other PTs and other online coaches. So decided to start Supercharged Fit Pro, which is what we place all of our focus and energy into now, which is essentially business coaching for fitness professionals. And that's kind of where we're at to today.
Amazing. And what would you say? One kind of big question I had was, I know you've managed a lot now in terms of like personal kind of family life. You've got your own training and you've got your own business. Like, what does a typical day in the life for you look like now?
Yeah, definitely. I think this is a really common concern for, in particular, personal trainers, right? Personal trainers who are managing in-person PT clients, trying to get their own sessions in, plus they want to work on their business and make strides forwards. So I think diary management and scheduling as an entrepreneur in general is a really, really key thing to focus on and to get right. So a typical day in the life for me does vary from day to day. Some days I drop the kids to school and pick them up, and other days I don't. So there is interchangeability across the week. But typically, I like to get up and make my wife and my kids breakfast first thing in the morning. That's the first thing I do as a non-negotiable. That's just like one of my little pleasures. So we have scrambled eggs and avocado on toast each morning and a nice coffee. And then I get straight to work, and I'll literally just sit at my desk and work all the way through the day, typically till about sort of 5 p.m. or just before 5 p.m., where I'll help with the kids. I'll do dinner, bath, and bedtime, all that kind of stuff that we do as parents. Depending on what I've got on that evening, I'll either dive straight back into work and answer some messages and respond to inquiries or whatever it might be. And then I'll potentially train jiu-jitsu in the evening. And that's pretty much it. It's a pretty boring life, to be honest with you. It doesn't really ever stray too much from that. But I am a creature of habit. And I think a lot of successful entrepreneurs are good at doing mundane tasks time and time again consistently. And I think that's a trait that I've recognized in people who are performing at an extremely high level.
And that's the thing as well. I remember when I was coaching, I used to always think like, what's the next kind of shiny object that I'm gonna do? Like, I'm gonna run ads at some point. I'm gonna create like a really fancy lead magnet. But like you said, it's just the simple, basic stuff. What would you say are your kind of simple, like foundational stuff that always needs to be done, and then it's just more on top of it kind of thing after?
Yeah, absolutely. So as a fitness professional, whether you're operating online or in person, the non-negotiable stuff, and it's the same for us and our business as well, right? Because we're still in the coaching space. Non-negotiable is working on your business and working in your business. So working on your business is looking at your systems and your processes and seeing if there's anything that needs improving there. It's doing your marketing for the day / the week, making sure that you've got content going out, emails going out, anything that's going to help move the needle forwards for acquiring new clients, essentially. And then working in the business is facilitating your clients' needs, responding to messages, If you're a fitness professional, it's updating programs or having your coaches update programs or whatever that might look like. For us, it's making sure that our clients are generating leads, they're making sales, and they're making advancements in their business. So yeah, I kind of really just separate between working in the business and working on the business. I typically like to work on the business early in the day and early in the week because I think it's important to make sure that we're progressing and we're moving forwards. You know, if you're continually just working on facilitating and not necessarily focusing on progressing, you're going to stagnate very quickly. So we dedicate a good amount of time early in the day and early in the week to working on the business. And then we make sure that all of our current clients have everything they need and have the support that they need to progress themselves.
Because that's also like a very common one I hear from coaches. It'd often be like, I'm a really good coach, but it's the sales, it's the lead generation, the marketing that's often the stuff that falls behind. If you do it, like you mentioned, first thing, it becomes a lot easier. What do you then measure in terms of the like on the business kind of tasks? How do you know, like, if a coach is listening to this, how would they know they're doing what they should be doing when it comes on the business? Is there particular stuff like numbers you track or particular metrics?
Yeah, for sure. Like, it's obviously going to be individually different for everyone, you know, who's listening to this based on what their current start point is and where they're trying to make progress. You know, business is very much ebbs and flows. It's seasonal. You're going to go through periods of time where you are hunting for new business, and you're going to go through periods of time where you are farming and you are consolidating everything that you currently have. And quite often, I think one of the mistakes that coaches make is they try to do everything at once, and it's really difficult to spin multiple plates at once. So recognizing when you need to put more focus and attention into, okay, we need to acquire more clients. We need to go on maybe you go through a launch, maybe you launch a new program or a new offer. You start building new lead magnets or resources to get new eyeballs on your stuff. You start building your mailing list a little bit more, marketing to the mailing list a little bit more. You know, these are things that you can do to focus on acquiring new clients. And in terms of tracking that, you might look at really simple numbers. Is our mailing list growing? Is our social media accounts growing? Is our reach growing from our social media content? If you're running ads, you know, what's the ROAS on our ads? So these are the kind of the numbers and the metrics that you can quantify and check to ensure that you're making progress. But they don't always have to be going up, is the point that I'm making. You know, we recently went through a period of time where we switched our focus from, we didn't stop lead generation, we didn't stop marketing. Obviously, marketing is always a concurrent activity, but we switched our focus from let's acquire as many clients as we possibly can to let's improve the service. Let's focus our attention onto making sure that anyone that joins us moving forwards is blown away with what they receive from us. All of our current clients are facilitated. And so the marketing side of things and those metrics and numbers might have taken a bit of a backseat, and that's absolutely fine. I think that's important for the listeners to realize.
Yeah. How do you manage the anxiety and stress of like the ebbs and flows of business?
Yeah, that's a really, really good question. It gets better with time. You know, as you become a seasoned business owner and you've been in the game for years, you become more accustomed to, more conditioned to peaks and troughs. One of the things I say to all of our clients is don't get high with your highs and don't ride low with your lows. You know, it's easier said than done, but it works both ways. You know, you might have your best month financially and you're absolutely buzzing and you're ecstatic and you want to celebrate that. And that's kind of understandable, but don't then assume or imagine that that is going to be your new norm. It's not, you know. So I think a coach's and a business owner's ability to pinch and zoom out and look more broadly across, okay, how have we performed this quarter versus this quarter last year? So Q1 this year, what was the total revenue we did versus Q1 2023? You know, what's the difference? Have we made progress? Yeah, absolutely we have. And more often than not, when you make comparisons from year to year or quarter to quarter or whatever it might be, you can usually see that the trajectory is in an upwards slope, and you can take comfort in the fact that you're progressing. But coaches are like checking their Stripe account on a daily basis and like, oh, you know, my numbers are down on this time last month. I haven't hit my new best record month. And it's like, it's a really unhealthy relationship to have with making money in your business, you know, because you're going to be so emotionally charged and you're going to start making the wrong decisions. You know, if you start operating from this place of scarcity because you don't feel like the month is going the way that it should be, you're gonna make decisions that don't complement the business in the long run. So trying to detach yourself emotionally from how much money you've made that month is really, really important.
And that's where like I found it for myself anyway. It comes across when you do have that scarcity mindset. It comes across in everything you do, every bit of content you put out, every bit of conversation you have. So what would you like in terms of your time in the military, in terms of that kind of, I guess, leadership style kind of tree and kind of how that run? What do you think are the biggest takeaways? Was there any similarities behind that, and then now how you run and manage your business, your team? I think it'll be very
Yeah,
unique
definitely.
perspective.
Yeah, definitely. I think the experience that the military gives you has direct crossover to running business or working in a team. Uh, Most importantly, working in a team. You know, command and leadership is obviously a massive part of being part of a military unit. Um, everybody needs to everybody needs to respect and follow the section commander or the platoon sergeant or whoever it might be in order to get the job done correctly and safely. And it's on the section commander or the platoon sergeants, it's their responsibility to make sure that they're leading from the front and that they are managing their team effectively. And so a lot of those skills and attributes do cross over into day-to-day running of a business. But you know, the way that you interact with other military personnel who are usually highly disciplined, motivated individuals, that isn't necessarily true for everybody that you're going to come across in a civilian workplace or work, you know, clients or colleagues or whatever. You're not always going to have that highly motivated individual. So sometimes the way that you want to approach a situation as a serving or an ex-serving military person doesn't always translate into what we're doing here in civilian street. So I have to be mindful of that and remind myself of that because, you know, there is a bit of a disconnect. But, you know, generally speaking, I think the military served me well and has put me in good stead to run a business for sure.
What would you? How would you say you structure your kind of like leadership style teams in organizations similar to how it was um, in terms of kind of like people management? I know for coaches are the first hire is typically like a success coach, and it's kind of how do you manage them? What's kind of the
Mm.
process you've taken in place for that?
So for our business specifically, our leadership style and management style is very much of a place of autonomy. So what I mean by that is, uh, I think one of the mistakes that a lot of leaders make is they delegate and micromanage specific tasks. So, for example, I need this done. This is exactly how I need it done. I need it done by this date. Do it now. And there's no wiggle room. There's no room for change either side. It's a very strict, clear boundary. Now, on one side, the positive of that approach is that you're very clear on what you want doing. There's no room for error, and the task gets done to a standard that you want it to be done. The downside of that approach, however, is the person on the receiving end, so the employee or the staff member or whoever it might be, has no autonomy. So they have no enjoyment in their day-to-day work because they don't feel like they're contributing um, or being valued the way that they perhaps should be. It also means that we can't take people's creativity and potentially really good ideas and use that to move the business forwards. Because just because I'm the leader or the owner of the business, it doesn't mean that somebody else can't have a fantastic way of doing something that I maybe haven't thought of. So rather than us delegating specific tasks, what we tend to do is delegate outcomes and then give them a rough idea of what that looks like. So for example, I might say to one of our coaches who work with our clients, you know, we need to get this coach to 10K a month in the next 4 months. This is the way that I would do it, step by step, 1, 2, 3, ABC, no wiggle room. Now that is delegating a task. If I say we need to get this coach to 10K a month, and this is how I would probably do it, but if you have any, ideas that you think would be useful or anything that's going to be relevant for that person, I'm an open book. Let's have a discussion about it and see what we can come up with together. Now, the second approach means that that coach now feels empowered to make their own decisions, be creative in the process of running this business. So they're going to have more fulfillment and enjoyment for what they do. And they're probably going to come up with fantastic ideas that I perhaps overlooked myself. So that's kind of how we run things from a management and a leadership perspective. It's just letting the individual have a little bit more autonomy over what they do and how they do it.
Amazing, because I think it's so like the other approach is so much more like talked about in terms of SOPs and processes. It's really interesting to hear. And I guess that's where like any role for coach listening to this, success coach, video editors, like whatever kind of stuff they hire is going to be the same thing in terms of like if you're the success coach, we need to get this client to lose 10 kilos. Here's how I typically do it. But you've got the autonomy to like refine it.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's still place, by the way, for SOPs. You touched on SOPs. Like there are still things within the business that need hard and fast rules where there's not much wiggle room. This is how we onboard a client. The onboarding process is this 1, 2, 3. There doesn't need to be creativity and loose boundaries with something like that. So there are certain things in the business that do benefit from having that slightly more hard and fast approach. But there are lots of things where giving the person that you are delegating outcomes to, giving them a level of autonomy just means that they enjoy their day-to-day work a little bit more.
And with that one kind of big one as well for you as wondering is, so you've kind of wrapped up from the military. What was the thought process in terms of going into coaching? Like how did that kind of transition in terms of making that decision and in terms of growing into quite a huge kind of coaching business?
Yeah, for sure. So it was actually, it was personal circumstance at the time. So I was in the military and I was going through a divorce. So at the time, I was going through a divorce with somebody who was ultimately my childhood sweetheart. I'd been with this person for 10 years. I came back from a tour of Canada and the relationship fell apart. So I was going through a divorce and it kind of messed with me on a personal level quite a lot. My head wasn't in the right place. And my senior officers recognized this and, I wasn't performing the way that I was previously. And I just happened upon a social media post from Jamie Alderton, who was opening this facility in Chichester, Grenade Fit, and he was looking for personal trainers to join the gym to coach clients and members out of this gym. And I applied just off a whim. Now, interestingly, in the military, when you want to leave the military, you have to give a year's notice. You can't just leave. You can't just say, I'm out, see you later, bye-bye. You speak to your chain of command, I want to leave. It takes a year to get out. Because I was going through the divorce, I spoke to my chain of command and I said, look, I've been accepted to take up this role as a personal trainer. It's an amazing opportunity for me, but obviously I can't get out of the military. And they said, look, they were really, really good, to be fair. And I'm incredibly thankful to this day for my chain of command in my regiment, the Household Cavalry Regiment. They basically said, you're going through a bit of a shit time, personally. This is an amazing opportunity for you. We're going to release you early. So that's kind of how it all happened. It was just on a chance. I saw a social media post. I applied. I got the job. I did the interviews, got the job. And then it all happened very quickly. So 1 week I was in the military. Maybe, the next week or 2 weeks later, I was moving my whole life down south to Chichester to work with Jamie Alderton and his team. That's kind of how it happened.
What did you find were like big takeaways in terms of how Jamie Alderson was running the facility? What was the kind of the biggest kind of behind the curtain kind of like things you saw from that?
I learned a lot from Jamie. Jamie was really kind of like my first unofficial mentor, I guess, like watching how he operates. And, prior to him opening the facility with Grenade, he had his own successful personal training studio. He was successful online. He sold low ticket, programs and PDFs. The days before that online coaching was a big thing, he used to sell, through YouTube videos and selling PDF workouts and that kind of stuff. So, he was kind of big in the game before online coaching really kicked off. So he was really my first unofficial mentor, watching him operate and how he did things. The thing that I took most from working with Jamie was I bypassed a lot of the mistakes that coaches often make when they start out in personal training. Most PTs, they join a gym, they massively undercharge. They compete on price with the other PTs. They try to be the cheapest in the gym so that they can get the most clients. And it's a race to the bottom, right? And Jamie was just like, from day one, week one, you guys work in this gym. We're a premium gym. You don't charge less than £1,000 for personal training packages. Day one, week one. So for me, that was a steep learning curve. But, retrospectively looking back on that, I managed to skip the mistakes that so many PTs make when they start out in the industry of undercharging, undervaluing what they do for their clients. So I'm very, very fortunate for my time at Grenade. I learned a lot.
And did you find the price element, the price anchor, like a lot of coaches have it? And I was very similar in terms of it's hard to charge a lot of money because for whatever reason, like it is, I shouldn't be charging this amount of money. Like, did you have that at any points, or was it just from the get go, day one?
Yeah, I think it was kind of like a perfect storm, right? I was quite fortunate in that this new facility that had lots of buzz around it was being opened up. And it had a massive brand behind it in Grenade. So everyone knew who Grenade were because the shakes were out by this point and the fat burners were obviously massive and the bars were coming out. And so everyone knew what Grenade was. So this new facility is open. It was premium facility, great kit. Jamie was doing his thing on social media, really promoting it. So it had a special feeling about it. So, as somebody who was just stepping into personal training, don't get me wrong, I was still nervous about asking for this price. But I still implicitly trusted Jamie that he was guiding us correctly. And I felt confident in my ability to coach the individual and to help them get the result. And, before long, I was churning out unbelievable results with clients. The before and after images that were coming out were getting a lot of attention online. This was like the start of my online business starting to grow. And, before long, the price, for me, it felt almost too low. I felt like I could be charging more. I was like, this is quite easy to sell now. So yeah, there was initial concern. And I think that's something that we recognize in our own clients when we ask them to increase prices for new clients. We can tell that they're nervous and they're worried, but, we get people to understand that by charging a premium price, you get a more dedicated client with more skin in the game, who checks in on time, who follows the plan meticulously, who asks questions, who doesn't cheat on their diet at the weekend because they've paid a premium price to work with you, So everything downstream from your price point often has a direct impact on the result that your clients get. So it's a two-way street. It's not just about making more money. It's about getting a better client with more adherence to the program.
For a coach listening to this now, they might be a bit anxious. They're like, oh, I know other coaches are charging more, and I know I get better results. what would you say to them in terms of overcoming that fear and charging what they want to be charging, I guess?
Yeah, it's so easy to say it on this end, me just saying what to do. Doing it is something else entirely. I do recognize that. It's easy for me to sit here and just say, just charge more. That's not great practical advice. So more practical advice is, number one, work with a business coach or a mentor, because something interesting happens when you do that. The same thing happens where you have skin in the game. You have a level of commitment to that individual or that team of people, where if they ask you to do something and you've paid them for their knowledge and their experience, you are far more inclined to go along with it because, well, what else are you paying for? Like if a client signs up with you as a fitness coach and you tell them to track these macros and to follow this training plan, and then they don't do it, you sit there shaking your head going, what's this person doing? What are they paying me for? And telling them to do this and they're not doing it. So the same is true with business coaching. So that's one thing I would say. The other thing I would say is, if you're really nervous, it usually comes down to a number of things. It's your mindset with money, which is often shaped in our younger years. So that's something you need to proactively work on. There are lots of great books around mindset with money, mindset in general, lots of podcasts that you can find around money mindset and valuing yourself accordingly. It usually comes down to a lack of ability to sell. So honing your sales skills, doing some sales training, doing some practice sales calls with friends or family members or partners can often give you more confidence going into those conversations. So there are a number of things to do. You're not completely screwed. You can fix this, but really you do just need to charge higher prices. That is the short and skinny of it.
How would you? It's probably going to vary based on business to business, but like coaches listening, what's the kind of like way you'd package up a typical fitness coaching program to make it like super irresistible and make it like, is it like a particular time frame, like 3 month, 4 month way of packaging it, in particular like outcomes you touch? Is how do you do it for your guys at Supercharged?
Yeah, for sure. So package length is really, really important for a number of reasons. But no less importantly, because the longer that you can work with a client, the better the result they're going to get typically. If you sell someone into a monthly rolling product, you are basically saying to that client, it's okay to come and go when you want, which shows low levels of commitment and a really small chance of them getting the result they came for. So what we typically do with the coaches in Supercharged is we have a 6-month product, a 12-month product, and a monthly payment option, but for the 6 months. And the way that we price this is we incentivize and we anchor the price on the 12-month paid in full. So we basically say, look, we say to the prospect, we say to the potential client, from experience, clients who commit to working with us for a longer period of time usually get the best results. So we incentivize you paying for a year in full by making it cheaper month to month. Okay, so let's say for argument's sake, I'll just do some really quick numbers here. Let's say for argument's sake that your coaching is £200 per month, right? If somebody was to pay for a year in full, that would be £2,400, right? Now, we might incentivize someone paying in full by making it £180 per month, but paid in full. So you're going to save this much money if you pay for the year in full, or you can pay 6 months in full and it will cost this much. So a little bit less, a little bit more month to month, but not as much as the 200, or you can pay £200 per month. Okay. And we just basically incentivize the larger commitments by making them cheaper month to month. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah. And I guess that's exactly how a coach would word it in terms of, you stay with, you follow a plan for 12 months, you're going to get way better results than if you're just thinking, next month I'll try something else. And
absolutely.
I guess that's when it also removes a bit of the financial stress for coaches as well, because they're not trying to get 10 people each month at 180. They're trying to just get one.
Mm-hmm.
painful, and it probably makes it a lot more steadier.
Yeah.
In terms of your kind of content side of things now for your Instagram, how does that kind of like process look in terms of like what's the mindset you have when it comes to like you sit down, you're about to film a reel, or you're about to write a carousel post? Like, what's the mindset? What's the thought process in terms of like making sure it's valuable and engaging for the coaches that are gonna take that information in?
Yeah, for sure. So the first thing is that, and this is for our business and for anyone who's watching this for your business, first and foremost, you need to know what your company's or business's mission and mantra is first. So our mantra specifically is we help frustrated personal trainers to build thriving online businesses in a year or less. So when we reverse engineer off the back of that, what our content looks like, does it tick that box? Is it going to help move the needle for a frustrated personal trainer to have a thriving online coaching business? And that's the first check in the box almost that we have to meet. You know, there's no point in me producing content if it's not going to appeal to or help a frustrated personal trainer who wants to move online. So that's the first thing. Quite often, always, in fact, I will separate the task of scripting content and recording content. You need to be in two different mind frames to do each of those things. You know, sitting at your desk and writing hooks and writing scripts requires a different version of me than trying to be charismatic and presenting myself in a certain way. I need a different level of energy. You know, so my energy might be highest after midday when I've had lunch with my family. I might be, you know, buzzing. And so that's a good time for me to go and film content. However, I might be quite clear and focused and quite mellow first thing in the morning. So that might be where I script content for the week. So recognizing when you're operating at different levels or operating in a different sort of mental space, and then doing tasks according to that energy level is a bit of a game changer. You know, I think a lot of the times coaches will just go, I need to make content. And then they will just off the cuff, just sit down and just, what shall I do a post about? Make some shit idea, not even script it out, and then set the camera up and go. And then they wonder why their content's crap and it's not getting engagement, not getting them inquiries. So I think generally speaking, people need to be a little bit more purposeful and conscious with their marketing, take it seriously. Sure, we didn't get into coaching to make Instagram reels, but it's part of what we do. You know, if you don't get your marketing out there, you're going to be the best kept secret. You can be an amazing coach with amazing experience and knowledge, but if you're not getting in front of people, it's no good to anybody. So play the game, take the time with your content, be consistent with it, and, you know, just get it done to a good standard is what I would say.
And you mentioned scripting content there, and it's not something that many people like are conscious about and like spend time doing from the conversations I have. How do you script out your content? So you mentioned a hook. What do you script out, and then do you just kind of read it, like memorize it, read it when you're filming?
Yeah, so this is the beauty of post-production editing, right? So most coaches listening to this will edit their own content because they're not in a position to hire an editor or whatever just yet, and that's absolutely fine. But even if you're editing your own content, you can, and the way that I do it is I just have my scripts up on a Google document on a phone in between my legs. I read the hook to the camera. So I'll say the hook to the camera and I'll put the phone down, say the hook, get the phone up, look at the next line, say it to the camera. And then I just literally do that. And then I just cut out the dead spots. Well, I don't do, my editor cuts out the dead spots, Joseph. But, you know, it doesn't need to be any more complicated than that. You don't have to be this performing monkey who can just reel this stuff off perfectly each time. And I think that's where a lot of coaches give up on content. You know, they think they need to be this performing arts actor to make great content. You don't. You just need to read off a screen to the camera and then read the next line and just keep doing that and cut out the dead spots. A lot of times coaches they'll start filming something for their social media. They'll make mistakes. They'll say ums and ahs or whatever, and they just give up. But if you just took that content and cut out all the mistakes, it would be fantastic. I've got no doubt about it. But people just don't do that, you know. So that's a big takeaway for coaches who struggle with face to camera stuff.
Yeah, that's going to be a game changer, because then, like you mentioned, it's so much easier to actually be creative first thing, and then when you've got the energy, when you've got more of the energy when you're in the space to do it. What are are there any other big mistakes you see coaches make at the moment when it comes to like social media content, when it comes to like things they're focusing on potentially?
Yeah, something that I've noticed a lot is we'll have coaches come to us and complain that they've got headache clients. So like, you know, those clients who they don't check in on time, they don't follow the plan, you know, they're fucking up their diet at the weekend, they're barely training, and it's like it's a real headache for coaches when you've got those clients who just don't stick to the plan. But all of their content is like, do you struggle to get motivated to get to the gym, or do you struggle to stick to your macros over the weekend? It's like you're making content for these people who are low discipline on the struggle bus, but then you complain when your clients are low discipline on the struggle bus. And it's like you need to start with the end in mind. If you want a disciplined client, start making content for the type of client that you want to work with. Okay. And then you won't have to complain about having a shit client who doesn't do what you ask them to do. So I think that's a big mistake with content that coaches make at the minute, massively.
Sweet, perfect. And Ollie, the last kind of biggest thing, kind of question wise, with kind of your journey so far, like what would you say is kind of been your biggest lesson, or like one kind of lesson you would give your younger self? You know, you're just about to go towards Jay Alderton's like coaching, you're just about to get into coaching from the military. What's one big lesson you'd give yourself, a bit of like hindsight and like overview of it all?
I would say when you're starting out, consistently good is better than occasionally great. But as you become further and further on in business, you need to start sweating the detail. You know, you need to start focusing on the minutia, making the small adjustments to go from good to great is important, you know. So starting out, it's all about creating momentum. When you're starting your coaching business, it's all about just getting it out there, just putting yourself out there, delivering your service. It's all going to be a bit shit, you know, because you don't know it all yet. You're learning, and that's fine. And that's the right mentality to have for that point in your life and in your career. But as you go further and further on, you need to start sweating the detail. So I think it's being adaptable and growing both personally and professionally is really, really key. That's what I would say to my younger self.
And who do you work with now, and where can people and coaches listening to this, where can they find you?
So we work with any fitness professional who wants to grow their business online. So whether they're already online coaching or if they're a personal trainer who wants to move online, easiest place to find us is either at our website, superchargedfitpro.co.uk, or on my Instagram handle, which is Ollie, Ollie, Carson, Carson, and then 2 underscores. Yeah, that's where most of the content goes, is on Instagram.
Amazing. Those links will be down below to this podcast, and guys, thank you so much for tuning in.
Peace.